So let me welcome you to a pretty big head-to-head today. We're gonna stack the iPhone 11 Pro Max against the Samsung S10 Plus. These are two great cameras. They both have 3 lenses. We're gonna stick to video today, so we'll do a lot of different tests, starting off here with the front-facing cameras. All right, guys, we're starting off here, Galaxy S10 Plus against the iPhone 11 Pro Max. So we got some shadows, we've got some HDR magic going on right now. Also, how's the stabilization looking? This is the first test. We're gonna do 4K 30, 4K 60. We're gonna go outside, we're gonna do audio tests, HDR tests, medium light tests, low light tests, just about everything in this review. So doing a quick pause here, you can notice that there's a good amount of noise in both of these cameras, as well the stabilization struggles a little bit as expected in low light. The next scene here, you're gonna see the exposure on the S10 get really wonky, and I wanted to almost remove this scene, but I felt like it was fair to keep it in because this naturally happened. So you're gonna notice I have a bit of a bias towards the iPhone in this. I am a big Android user, I have been for a long time. I still prefer a lot of things on here, but ultimately what made me get this phone were the video features. So this whole video will be diving into those video features. So I want you guys to get a good example of how these two cameras are gonna stack up against one another. I don't know what the exposure is doing right now on the S10. I did clean the cameras on both, so they are both having the fairest example possible. With that, let's go ahead and get outside and we'll take a deeper dive into both of these camera systems. See you out there. All right, so right now we're on the front-facing medium zoom lens. It's pretty interesting because I know there's a lot of software magic that goes into it. Looks like the iPhone is actually stabilizing as you're filming, where the Samsung is shaky, but I know by the end process, it's gonna look good. How do these two look with detail as we're passing all the plans? All right, so we just switched to the ultra wides, guys. I gotta say, first off, it's good to be back. So I am happy to be back doing a comparison. It's been a long time since we've done one of these head-to-head comparisons, so I'm really curious how these two stack up. Honestly, I expect the iPhone to win. I've already seen the footage out of it, but I haven't done a head-to-head with that Galaxy S10 Plus. This should be essentially the same camera system that you're gonna get out of the Note 10, as well as even the Galaxy Fold, which I pre-ordered but ended up canceling. I'll probably hold out for the Fold 2 or just stick with my iPhone for a while now. As long as it continues to be the best video camera, that's probably what I'm gonna go with. How's the audio right now? It's not too windy, but I am curious. A lot of times we've seen the iPhone pick up a lot of wind noise, especially in these types of environments. It's just a subtle wind. So something I hope it gets better with compared to the Samsung. Does it do a better job with the wind noise reduction? Also with the sun at my back, how's that looking? Let's do a quick spin around here. We'll just kind of get all the scenery. All right, let's switch over and we'll do some zoom tests, and then we'll go to 4K 60 and check that out as well. After that beach scene, it was pretty interesting because originally in the first scene, the front-facing cameras, I really thought the iPhone was going to blow it out of the water. But when you start to see some of the HDR out of the Samsung, it really does a good job. The other thing to note is the stabilization. You're not seeing it on the screen on here, so everything's kind of shaking around as you're walking, but it does smooth it out in post. You can see this later when we do a stabilization test. And again, these are on the exact same tripod, so if there's any shaking difference, it's simply the camera's processing and how it's handling it. The iPhone just looks buttery smooth, where the Samsung is shaking a ton, but again, I know that's probably gonna be fixed when it's done editing. Let's go ahead and we'll do some digital zoom now that we're kind of stopped. Take a look at the boats. So we're gonna go about 6x on both of these. Either of these look better than the other. You should see artifacts in the water. It shouldn't look too good. Just kind of curious here. Really curious why you can't go from the 1x lens to the ultra wide on either of these, but something they both have in common. You can record it on the iPhone. You just have to stop recording and start recording again, where on the Samsung, you just don't even have that option. So if you're using the ultra wide, it doesn't let you use 4K 60. It's always gonna do 4K 30. All right, so I just learned 2 more things. I don't think the Samsung can focus when you're recording in 4K 60. My face is not in focus right now, that's confirmed. The second thing I realized is that it's not even using the telephoto when you zoom in 4K 60, it's complete digital zoom. So the iPhone's really doing a much better job here because it can actually switch to the telephoto lens. What really surprised me, and you'll continue to hear throughout all these clips, is that the Samsung to me actually sounds better. I actually had to adjust the levels a bit on the iPhone, just boost them a tiny bit, where the Samsung right out of camera sounds a little bit richer to me. There wasn't a lot of wind noise. So I actually think audio-wise, I probably have to give it to the Samsung right now, although I'm hoping iPhone can step up with some software updates in the future, but we'll see. For me, the audio is definitely winning on the Samsung. All All right, so we're back in 4K 30 right now, and I've actually learned a lot as I've been using these right now. I think I like the time-lapse a little bit better on the Samsung because it kind of speed ramps at the beginning and end. But on the iPhone, it lets you use all the lenses. So ultimately, I can go ahead and choose the wide angle, and you can see how much of a difference that actually makes when we're shooting. So I really like the fact that you can use the wide angle. You can kind of speed ramp, but if a hyperlapse is already speed ramped, you can't really slow it down. It's gonna look weird. So stuff to be aware of, but I think, again, the flexibility of using all the lenses is more important to me. And so ultimately, the processing power of this phone is just crazy compared to the Samsung. All right, so what we just learned is that the minimum focus distance on both of these is pretty good, especially when using the telephotos. You can definitely get macro shots like you need to. Something like the moment lens may help a little bit better if you want to get super fine details on something, but honestly, the built-in cameras are both going to work pretty well. I do really have to say the focusing at that point when you're using the telephoto on the iPhone, to me, looked very smooth. It acquired what it needed to, and it just looked like it was transitioning very appropriately. The Samsung definitely focused on what it needed to too. It just didn't have that kind of cinematic effect that I saw on the iPhone. All right, so I think it's about time we do a stabilization test. We'll use the wide angle lens, we'll use the normal lens, and then we'll use the front facing camera to see what this can do. Let's get into it. All right, so we're starting off with wide angle. These are not optically stabilized. We're walking, and then we're just gonna pick up speed and start running a little bit. See how both these do. All right, now we're on the 1X. We're gonna do the same test. We're just walking forward a little bit, slowly pick up speed, then we're gonna go into a run. See how these two do against each other. Oh, hi there. All right, so last test now, we're using the front-facing cameras on both. Walking, and now we're running. Just gonna pick up speed. This is gonna be all digital stabilization. But not least, not really a fair test, but you're using the super steady that we have on the Galaxy S10 Plus. So right now we're gonna start running, and this is cutting it down to 1080 while we do this, mind you. So we're still at 4K on the iPhone. So that stabilization test actually surprised me because on the phones, again, the iPhone looks really smooth. You're seeing the stabilized footage as you're filming. However, you can notice this weird pulsing in and out if you take a look here on the iPhone with whatever it's doing with stabilization as you're walking forward and backward. I think if you're standing still and moving around, it's honestly like a gimbal. But if you're moving forwards and backwards, like walking or running, it doesn't do as good of a job, and you can actually notice this weird pulsing in the trees here. So that was just a quick low light test, and honestly, I think the color temp on the Samsung was better. The quality, the graininess was about the same between both of them, but I don't necessarily know if there's a big leg up. You can adjust color temp pretty easily on both the phones themselves. You don't even have to go into a computer with that. So while overall, I've got to give it to the iPhone. It has more versatility. You've got autofocus in 4K 60. You can switch between the lenses a little bit more dynamically. The stabilization is great as long as you're not necessarily walking or seeing that pulsing effect. And I think a lot of this they can fix through software updates. Whereas Samsung, although it was amazing, I figure they're probably more focused on their 2020 variants at this point and less focused on enhancing the existing phones. So we'll see in the future what comes out through software. We'll also see what Samsung announces in 2020. Overall, though, I gotta say I was actually surprised. I expected the iPhone to blow this out of the water, and instead, there were some scenes where I really preferred the Samsung. When you consider audio quality, the Samsung was really good. I give it to the iPhone again, but it was definitely closer than I expected. So that's it, guys. As always, it's been a pleasure having you. Stay tuned for future videos. If you want to see photo tests, other comparisons between these two, let me know in the comments below. If you have any questions, also let me know. Thanks for joining me. I'll see you guys next time. If you haven't subscribed already, definitely consider it. Have a good one.